Wealth Talk. I'm your host, Brian Selding, Vice President with the Alpha Wealth Group. And I want to start today by taking us on a journey down memory lane. Let's close our eyes and hearken back to a younger day of 1992. Maybe we just left Blockbuster Video with a VHS or DVD of Sister Act, maybe Scent of the Woman, depending on your mood for the weekend. And now you're on your way home to enjoy the weekend with your wife, and you stop at the bank to run a quick errand. You need to renew your CD. And you lock in a new CD at, let's say, 6.5 or 7%. Life is good. You go home to your wife, you put in the movie, and you're not worrying about your retirement accounts because you have a good chunk of money that's guaranteed to grow at 6.5 or 7% safely. Now let's flash forward today, and that's not the world that we live in, sadly. We are in a low interest rate market environment, and we're going to be there for the foreseeable future, is basically what the Fed has stated. Let's take a quick look at a chart here. And this is a chart of interest rates on the 10-year Treasury over the past 40 years from 1980 on. And you can see basically on that chart, it's been a sliding down scale ever since maybe 1982. So today, if we were to go to the bank and try to lock in a CD, we may be looking at 1.5% return on our money. The 10-year Treasury sits right around 0.75, under 1% today. These are unprecedented times, and the effect that it has on our retirement is important, and we need to be conscious of the low interest rate market environment that we live in. The reason why the Fed has basically pledged this, for the most part, is let's take a look at national debt. This is national debt over the past few presidencies. And you can see under every president, debt has continued to rise and rise and rise. And today it stands over $22 trillion. So the cost of servicing that debt is tied to interest rates. And if interest rates rose too high, we couldn't afford to service the interest on the debt that we owe our own country. So interest rates for the foreseeable future are probably not going to get back to that normal 6% range. I just don't see that happening. So unfortunately, we need to, again, like I said, plan on a low interest rate market environment for retirement and the pressure that comes with that. Here's a look at, the S&P 500 versus the aggregate bond index, AGG, over the past 5 years. And you can see the S&P 500 has basically had a 70% return over that period of time, where the bond index has returned just over 7% over 5 years, not annualized, the entire time, right? And so, again, very few people are comfortable sitting in a large bond portfolio today because they're not getting the return on the money that they need. And what does that do? And what is the impact that has on the rest of us? Let's take another look, right? Well, here's the S&P 500 over the past, I believe, the past 3 years. This is going from October 2017 to October of 2020. And you can see these two very precipitous drops, right? In 2018, we had a drop of 17% as we closed out the year. And earlier this year, during the coronavirus crisis, we saw the S&P drop over 30%, highlighted by those two arrows. Extreme volatility. Part of that is the fact that more people are in the stock market than ever before, or I should say more people have more of their retirement assets in the stock market than ever before, because they're not getting the returns they need on bonds. They've been forced into these equity markets to get a rate of return that coincides with their goals. And maybe they aren't truly comfortable with the risk of the stock market, but they also can't afford not to be in it. So when that risk rears its ugly head, as it did in 2018, as it did earlier this year, we have extreme volatility because people go running for the door. That first sign of risk, if they didn't want risk to begin with, they're going to be extremely skittish. And that just starts this snowball down the hill that picks up steam. And then more people get skittish as the market continues to go down. And there's more sellers than buyers. That's what drives the market down. So we've seen extreme volatility in the stock market due to probably more people in the stock market that really shouldn't be in there, but have been forced in because they don't really have anywhere else to go to get a reasonable rate of return. Let's take a look at two kind of retirement rules or retirement adages that you've probably heard over the years. One of them was take your age, subtract it from 100, and that equals the amount of equities or stock that you should have in your retirement portfolio. So for the average 60-year-old, you should basically have 40% of your exposure in stocks and 60% in bonds, or maybe vice versa, you have a 60-40 portfolio as kind of the industry norm, right? That's kind of a balanced portfolio. You have 60% equities, 40% bonds because you want the safety of bonds to go along with the long-term growth of equities. However, when bonds are only returning 1.5% to 2%, it really pushes us against the 8 ball to meet our retirement goals. Secondly, is they really can't offset the down bear markets in stocks when you're not getting a decent rate of return in bonds. Morgan Stanley says that they have an outlook for a 60-40 portfolio that says they're predicting a 4.1% return in the next decade. That's half of what it used to be. Half of what it used to be in a traditional 60-40. Can we afford to do that? Let's take a look at another rule, the 4% rule, right? That idea was if you grew your pot of money to a large enough number that all you had to withdraw was 4%, the likelihood of you running out of money in retirement was small. However, that was done when you could get 6% return on safe money. If I had 40% of my portfolio in safe money getting me 5, 6, 7%, yeah, it was real easy to outperform 4%, even in the down years. But we don't live in that environment anymore. And so more and more retirees are pushed their backs against the wall as it comes to trying to manage risk with return. And traditional bond investing might not be the answer. There are some answers or things that you may want to look at doing. You can get a more active bond portfolio. You can look at things like emerging market bonds, international bonds, high yield bonds, and you can actually build an active bond portfolio to try to get you a reasonable rate of return. Now, with that comes some more risk than treasuries, obviously, but it's something that you need to take a look at. Another alternative is looking at something like an indexed annuity. An indexed annuity can provide that safety of bonds, right? It gives you the principal protection. You know you're not going to lose over there with some upside potential based on market indexes that should hopefully outperform cash or very low yields on bonds that we've been seeing. So there are alternatives to things you want to look at, but we need to make sure that we don't try to live our retirement back in 1992. You wouldn't go to Blockbuster anymore today. They don't exist. You're not getting a VHS anymore. We're streaming everything. So we need our retirement plans to live in the world that we live in now as well. For more information on this, go to the link below. I've put it down in the comments section, a link to our website, alphawealthgroup.com, or give us a call at 630-519-4742. That's 630-519-4742, and we can take a look at how low interest rates may impact your retirement planning. It's extremely important as we enter into that stage to really understand the risk that we have in our portfolios balanced against the expectations of our portfolios. I hope you enjoyed this and you learned a little bit, and we'll see you next time on Alpha Wealth Talk.